Hello, everybody. Welcome to Chattable, Hollywood Stories, Insights, and Overshares. I am your host, Gunnar Rohrbacher, founder and co-owner of Actors Comedy Studio in Hollywood. Chattable is brought to you by the team at ACS. Today we have Aaron Coleman helping us with production. What is Chattable, you may be wondering? It's just an informal conversation with some friends that we've made along the way in our journey through the entertainment industry, and just to get to meet people, pick their brains, and talk about their particular field of expertise. And so I will have a conversation with today's guest, and then we will have an opportunity for you to ask questions at the end. So maybe they'll get answered along the way. If not, we will go to you after the end of our conversation. So with no further ado, I would like to introduce you to a good friend of mine, actor, voiceover coach, and technologist. I love saying that. Mr. David H. Lawrence the 17th. Yay, it's not just an icon. Sometimes I'm afraid it's just going to be the picture. And
Yeah, if only I could make the mouth move, it would be less work.
for you, more for me, because I'd have to do both sides of the conversation. Hello and welcome, David. Good to see
Thank
you.
you. It's nice to see you too. I haven't seen you in so long. It's like there's some pandemic or something.
You're one of the few people that I can say, well, the last time I saw you actually in person as
Yeah.
and had human contact. Actually, here's a better way of saying it. You're the last person I was comfortably able to see in person, because it was literally like the next 1 or 2 days after we had lunch.
Oh, that's right. We had lunch at Granville here in Burbank, and then yeah, we went into lockdown. Did
Uh-huh.
we didn't cause that, did we?
No, no,
Okay, good.
but I have to now consider the significance that you're the last person I socialized with before the pandemic. It's part of the recorded history in my journey.
Okay.
Okay. So there's so much I want to cover with you because, like I think a lot of people who thrive in the industry, you do more than one thing. I don't think you have to, but I've just seen the through line in it in my personal friends, and then the people who I have invited to teach at Actors Comedy Studio, or the people that I just converse with. So let's start with number one, actor.
hmm
Uh, did you always want to be an actor?
I think so. I think my stepfather helped me sublimate that against my will. I was too young to know any better, but I remember at age 7, I saw a movie that you may or may not be familiar with called Gigot. It's spelled Gigot,
Hmm.
and it stars in a completely line-free, because he played a character of a deaf mute role, Jackie Gleason. And I think Jackie Gleason is one of the best actors we've ever seen
Mm.
for so many reasons. Not because of the immense overplaying of things on the Honeymooners, which was what that demanded,
Mhm.
but the subtle ways that he could evoke emotions, especially with me as a 7-year-old. I'm watching this movie. He plays a an apartment manager, I believe in France, who is accused of sexually abusing one of the residents' children, despite the child saying, no, it wasn't him. He was the convenient target. And I found myself going, no, he didn't do it. I know who did it. He didn't. And I could not get past the fact that he made me feel all these things without saying a single word. And it stuck with me my whole life. And there are people that say, if I had it to do all over again, what would I do? And the one thing I would do, although it would alter my life experience, is I would have become an actor sooner in life. I waited until a second act. I didn't become an actual on camera actor. I was an on mic actor from the time I was like, in the womb, I think. But I decided to come out here in my late 40s and didn't get my first job until I had already turned 50. So I'm kind of one of the exceptions to the rule of there are no jobs for anybody over 25. and there are certainly no jobs for big, fat, bald, old guys. Um, but I think it was in me for a long time, and I just had kind of denied it. And then the weather in D.C. Made me move. And
Uh-huh.
I decided, you know what? I'm going to move out here. I'm going to see if this gorgeous face and this amazing physique can make it in a Hollywood, because that's what I was thinking. Anyway, yeah. So I guess the answer to your question is yes, but I didn't act on it until 50 years after I realized it.
Wow. I think that's very helpful for people to hear and very inspirational because, we're carving our own path in this life, every minute we're living it. And if you have a dream, that's keep dreaming it because you never know when things can happen for you.
Absolutely.
Huh. All right, great. I'm glad I started there. Um, and then you talked about where you were grow up, and was
Well,
there
I actually grew up in Cleveland. I lived for about 16 years in D.C.,
okay.
working in radio and D.C. Baltimore area. And, they're just in denial about the weather there. Aaron can tell you.
What was how were you influenced by then growing up in Cleveland?
Oh, Cleveland was like, man, it was a great place to be from. I mean, great people came from Cleveland. A lot of great performers come from the Midwest, and voice talent comes from the Midwest because it's kind of accent free. Cleveland, Chicago, Erie, Buffalo, Rochester, that whole Great Lakes necklace thing. They have those harsh A's, and they park their cars in the driveway, But uh, you tend to have not much to do when the winters are like they are, and so you watch. I watched a lot of television. I used to run home from school in the '70s, and I would flip on channel 43 and watch Spider-Man and Speed Racer, and this local guy that was the program director of the UHF station there played super host, and he hosted all the afternoon. So I was a fan of the media from very early on. So that kind of colored everything for me, sure.
I was obsessed with Speed Racer. Do you want to hear a very funny quick story?
Sure.
You have to say yes now because I asked. I was obsessed. And my mom asked me one day, she goes, "Do you want to be Speed Racer?" And I go, "No, I want to be Trixie."
There you go. Listen, we form our identities early, don't we? Here, here's a sound that you'll love.
Because you got to jump. You got to
And
get
which button? Which
right.
button was that?
It was
G.
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 Oh,
And
hold you can, it's such good memories. So then, at what point did vocal performance or VO work become part of your picture?
well, I mean, I was obsessed with radio. I grew up, and you kids, you won't know what this is, but I grew up with a transistor radio under my pillow. It was a twice the thick. It was like here. I just bought this new hard drive. It was about like this big, and I would put it under my pillow, and I would listen to distant radio stations, and I was fascinated with it. And being in Cleveland, I picked up stations from Chicago and New York and the Big 8 CKLW in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. And my own hometown radio station that I really was a fan of, the Big 1220 WGAR, I ended up working there as I got older. But the very first thing I did was I was a DJ. I was a club DJ at age 14. I spun records. This was in the days of disco. I spun records at the Saturday afternoon teen dance at the Cleveland Freight and Trucking Company. It was a restaurant in the Flats, which is this sort of urbanized area in Cleveland, and I went there for lunch with my parents or something, and I said that I just while the waiter was standing there, I said to my mom, "That DJ is awful. He doesn't he doesn't know how to like mix on the beat or anything." I was like a big fan of all that stuff. And so apparently the waiter said something to the manager, and the manager came over and said, "Do you think you could do better than he did? Because we're looking for a DJ." And I said, "Yeah, I can." And he put me up in the booth, and I knew how to like slip records and mix on the beat and in key. And the DJ that was just like kind of really ruining things, he's like, "Hey, pretty good, yeah." So for the next 6 months or so, I was the after. My mom had to drive me to the dance. I hope I'm not boring anybody with this, but that was my introduction to this whole thing. And then did radio right from the time I was did high school, our high school radio station. Then I went to Ohio State, and I worked there in radio. And I worked at what is like the Kiss FM of Columbus, Ohio, in my freshman year. And I ended up quitting college because of it. Because I worked my way up from sort of babysitting the religious tapes on Sunday morning to overnights to afternoon drive to morning drive within a year. And I thought to myself, I don't want to go to Psych 204 classes when I get off the air. I'm doing what I want to do. And I'm loving it. And it's feeding me. I didn't have the words for it, but it was feeding my soul. And so there was, again, weather related. There was a really bad thunderstorm in Columbus. And I was like trying to get down 71 to get to the parking lot, which I knew was going to not be plowed. And I ended up driving to the admin building, parked in the dean's space, which was plowed, and I went inside and I withdrew. So I've never looked back. So kids, don't do
Wow.
what I do.
We we have more things in common than I realized. Um, I have to know what were some of your favorite songs that you played?
Oh my gosh. So the first song I played was Barracuda by Heart.
Oh,
And it's still one of my favorites because it was the first song I ever played on the radio. But much more importantly, I realized I had a knack for this thing because Barracuda ends cold. And what that means is the music just goes and stops. There's no fade, it ends cold. And right out of the song, I open the mic and I go, Land Shark, Candygram. At the time, Landshark was there wasn't memes in those days, but if there was a meme, it was what was being repeated on Saturday Night Live.
yeah.
And the Landshark, Candygram, Telegram Man, Candy, Flowers, that whole thing was happening on Saturday Night Live, and my program director was listening, and he heard it, and he said, "That's very funny, David. That's very good."
Yes. For our younger viewers, it's the Saturday Night Live pop culture references of the time.
Yeah, exactly. And so to me, it was like, oh, I can pull in current culture and make it funny. And I got fired from that radio station for being really funny. Um, that's another story for another day, I think.
I don't well, part of the title of Chattable is overshares. So you can give us TMI anytime you want. It's up to you.
Okay, so Pope John Paul the First. There was Pope John Paul the First, and there was Pope John Paul the Second. Pope John Paul the First was Pope for like 15 minutes. It was actually 31 days, but he died 31 days into his tenure as Pope. And he really affected me. I watched a story on the CBS Evening News how during one of the Sunday services that they had at St. Paul's Cathedral, or not St. Paul's Cathedral, what is it? St. Peter's. He called one of the altar boys over and had him sit there with him, and he talked to him about honoring your mother and father. It was the homily of the week. And it struck me that that kid was going to go back to his neighborhood in Rome or wherever. He was going to, by transference, be a saint, a hero in the neighborhood because the Pope had touched him. And he seemed like just a human person, this Pope John Paul the First. So he died on a Thursday. I was on the air on a Saturday. And I said in my pukey DJ voice, because that was the only voice I had at that point, I said, "Here's Billy Joel's Only the Good Die Young," because I want to tell you something. Pope John Paul the First, you died too young for me. Really tight to the vocals, really nicely done. Billy Joel pops right in when I stop talking. And then on Monday morning, when I got called into the radio station, I had to walk past the picket line that the local diocesan women had set up about how, WNCI, the station that I was working at, was playing the music of the devil. Because in the song, Only the Good Die Young, it says, "Come out, Virginia, don't make me wait. Catholic girls start much too late."
Mhm.
So That was my first stumble.
Well, okay. I mean, apparently your employer thought so, but my follow-up question is, do you regret it?
Yeah, I do. What I regret is not being more self-aware and not being more aware of my audience, and it taught me a lesson.
Mm.
I didn't. First of all, I didn't know we were on the do not listen to list with the diocese. Nobody shared that memo with me, so I didn't know. Otherwise, I likely wouldn't have said that. But I don't know for sure. I might have said, "Hey, I'll get away with this." Yeah,
It's what our
you
media
know.
is for. How else do we learn?
Right, right. So yeah. By the
Okay.
way, all you people, like and share and no. Anyway, go ahead.
I'm glad I pulled that out of you. Well then, can you talk more about the origins of your voiceover career, working in radio, and
Oh,
then
sure.
how it
Well,
evolved?
the good news is once you start working in radio and your voice is heard on the air on any station of import, they're going to give you production work to do, which means going into the production studio rather than the air studio and recording commercials or talking over a donut. We had a local chain of discount stores called Uncle Bill's. And Uncle Bill's used to have a spot that had 10 seconds at the end of the 60 seconds with just music underneath it. And your job was to say, this week at Uncle Bill's, fill in the blank, whatever the special was, V-neck t-shirts, $15 for 50, whatever it was. And I remember the very first time I heard myself doing a spot, it was the first time I'd heard myself on the air when I wasn't actually on the air. And I nearly drove off the road. I was so excited that I had achieved this, right? But the thing is, once you start doing that sort of work, people hear it, they're likely to call the station, maybe advertise on the station, ask for you. And what happened with me is I had a local producer of industrial films call the station and ask about me. They wanted me to voice an industrial film. And I was like, sure. Yeah. What does this pay? And he said 16.95. And I'm like, awesome. I'll make like almost $20, which will be great. And so I voiced a film where I remember how it opened. It opens on two people in an office, and my line was, "This is John. This is Susan. Watch now as John says something inappropriate to Susan. Hey Susan, that's a really nice top you're wearing there. You look great. Say John, have you read the pamphlet on sexual harassment? Welcome to Sexual Harassment and You."
I could kind of listen to you do that forever.
And then I got the check, and I'm like, "Oh, that's 16.95. That's even better."
Uh,
So yeah, so that was the first thing I did. I did, just tons of stuff after that, but that was the very first thing I did, other than doing production at the radio station. How much time do we have? Because we're never going to get anywhere if I keep talking about Columbus radio.
Yeah, no, no, no. I think I totally see the progression. Can I talk to you about the work that you've done in voice prompts? You've talked to me about that
Sure.
before. I find it fascinating, and I think some of our guests would too.
Yeah. Once I had been in radio for, I don't know, 10 years or so, this new service called America Online showed up. And I was in DC at the time, and that's where AOL was based before it basically became uh, a pimple on Huffington Post's butt. Because that's really what it is. They bought Huffington Post when they were a thing,
Yeah.
Time Order Media and all that, and now it's like this big, and Huffington Post is this big. But in the day, it was like huge. It was what CompuServe wanted to be. It's what Prodigy wanted to be. It's what Genie wanted to be. I don't know if you remember any of these things, if you were even born yet. But these were all online services that were long before just doing stuff on the internet, and certainly long before any social media. It was the social media of the day.
Yes.
So AOL is based in DC, and I got Macworld magazine that month. I was a Macintosh user, and it came with a floppy disk of AOL. It was tucked inside the magazine, and I thought, oh, let's see what this is all about. It was pretty cool. It was a graphical interface, which was very new. You know, CompuServe was all text. Genie was mostly text. And I mentioned it on my morning show on Q107. I said, hey, I'm on this new service now. It's called America Online. If you want to send me a message, send it to screen name David107. So I get off the air, and at like 10:02, I get a phone call from a woman by the name of Jean Villanueva, who was employee number 6 at AOL, and eventually went on to marry Steve Case, who was the CEO.
Mhm.
Jean said, "Oh my gosh, I almost drove off the road when I heard you mention America Online. That's so cool. The Dulles Toll Road was dangerous for a while. I was so excited." And so she said, "Do you want to have Steve on your show?" And I said, "Well, you know, that would be taking it a little far. My show is the most music in the morning, and we don't usually do interviews, but I do love your service. I think it's really cool with all the little windows and everything, and it's easy to install." And she goes, "Well, I have one other thing I want to ask you, and that is we have a tech support line. We have a customer call-in line, and they're calling in a lot for the same thing. And so what we thought might be cool is if we put one of those phone trees on it, where we would have a recorded voice answer commonly asked questions. How do I install the disk? What do I do? How do I restart my machine? Whatever. Would you be up for being that voice?" And I said, "Yeah, I guess. I mean, you know."
The voice of AOL.
Well, hold on. Just to be clear, I'm not Elwood Edwards. He's the guy that said, "You've got mail," and all the other things. I'm not that. Or Joanna Lumley in the UK. "You've got post."
It's Joanna Lumley.
Oh, sure is. Sure is. I replaced my AOL sounds with the UK sounds because they're named exactly the same.
Uh-huh.
So I had Joanna Lumley saying, "You've got post. Welcome. Files finished." And it was said in a way like, "You stupid Americans, done is what a steak is, a process is finished." Seriously, there was like this little bit of arrogance and it's "files finished," I think is how it went. But then, but her goodbye was so plaintive and wistful, it almost demanded that you log right back on. She would say, "Goodbye." And I'd be like, "Wait, hold on. I'll be right back. Hey, hang on. I'll start it again. It's okay." Anyway, I said, "Yeah, I'd be interested in that." And she said, "Well, what would you charge me?" And I swear to God, Gunnar, I pulled it out of my butt. I said, I don't know, $50 a prompt, because I knew how it was constructed, and a prompt is any one recording. So a prompt could be a 3-minute introductory message, or it could be 7, as in the phrase, "Your balance is $7.12." Each one of those is a prompt. And she said, "Great. I want to reserve at least 60 a month. And if we go beyond that, we'll pay you $50 each." Beyond that, I ended up doing over 38,000 prompts for them over the 28 years that I was their voice.
Everybody get your phone calculators out fast.
So that was a fun repeat customer. And I didn't have to audition for it. I just had to say something nice about AOL. So
Do you have a habit of being in the right place at the right time, David?
I feel that way. I feel like, you know, if anybody said, "What's your key to success?" It would be timing is everything. You know, I feel like I was at the beginning of what is our current technological 40-year revolution. If you've ever read The Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, and they talk about Bill Gates, excuse me, and Bill Joy, who was the founder of Sun Microsystems, being in the computer room in the early 70s in high school with the teletype connected to the mainframe. That was me. That was me. As a freshman in high school, I had sophomores, juniors, and seniors coming to me for advice on how to write basic programs, Fortran programs. And I worked at NASA in high school. And so entertainment and technology have always been kind of interwoven in my life. And it's been a joy to be at the leading edge of those things because, look, what we've been through in the last 6 months and will likely continue to be suffering with for a long time to come is what I've been doing, sheltering in place, socially distancing for like 30 years. So I've been working at home for a long time. I did my radio show, my network radio show. I was on about 150 radio stations in the 90s and into the 2000s, and on XM and Sirius when they were separate services from my second bedroom. I mean, I was able to do things that other people would like scratch their head and go, "Really? You can do that?" And now that's become pretty mainstream. I mean, when I teach people how to do voiceover work, the equipment is far less expensive. The treating of a room is far less work. The technology is for the software is free for the most part. So I felt like being in the right place at the right time is something that has popped up for me over and over and over. So yeah,
Hmm, interesting. Well, can we, since we're heading that way anyway, can you talk to us about VO Heroes and exactly what that is?
sure. It used to be called for some of you I know already. I see some of the people that whose names I recognize in the participants window. You may remember it as VO2 Go Go.
It always makes me
And
want to dance.
yeah, well, for me, I would tell people the name of my company, and then I would instantly have to spend at least 5 minutes explaining how to spell it. So I lived with that for a while. I lived with that for about 10 years. And then I thought, I really, really need to rebrand. And it was one of the best things I did. I help build voiceover heroes, heroes to their clients. I want my clients to be thought of as the people that take care of people who need voice work. They lead them through projects. They are the rock, the solid rock that their clients can depend on to be heroic, to really help them get their commercials done, get their IVR systems like AOL, things like that done, audiobooks done. And so over the years, I taught live at places like the old stomping grounds of ACS. And again, over time, we moved everything online, and the curriculum grew from the first class was about commercials. The second class was about IVR because I was, introducing that to people who had no idea that there was that kind of work available. And then the third class was about documentary narration. And then people go, "Well, what equipment do you use? How do you do demos? How do I set up my software? And so it grew from 3 classes to a curriculum of courses. It's now 39 courses. And in fact, I just added a new course yesterday uh, called How to Take a Note. People are not trained, especially when they come from outside the industry. And I have a lot of people who side grade from being a salesperson or being a teacher or being a doctor. You know, I don't want to say anything, but the ladies, they say I have a great voice. That's what I'll get, you know, from time to time. Or I make these wacky, nutty voices and it's great. And I'd be great on Saturday morning cartoons. And I have to disabuse them of the notion that Saturday morning cartoons even exist anymore because they don't. Um, but they come to me from other parts of the world, other businesses, other lines of work, and they don't get trained on the way in on how to receive coaching, on how to receive a note. Now, we have either learned it because we were taught it in acting class or because we were modeled it by somebody who knew what they were doing. But it was amazing. I just launched the new year of VO Heroes. And so we have like 50 some odd new students, many of whom have never been coached before, not even in voiceover or in acting, but in whatever they did. I don't know where they came from, but they certainly don't have any sort of formal training in how to take a note, how to be adjusted. And so I had a conversation online yesterday with the one student in my class who said, "You really should tell people how to take a note," because people were like justifying their approach and they were talking back to you. And, what they should be doing is saying, "Thank you. And let's try that. And okay, that's great. Could you clarify something for me?" But not, "Well, the reason I did this was," And so we had a conversation with Michael Kostroff. I don't know if you know Michael. He does Audition Psych 101, so I had him on as well as one of my students, and we talked about it. And so that's how these things show up. Again, timing. being in the right place at the right time. And also, and I think this is a lesson that I think anybody who's a performer needs to recognize. You have to be listening with your entrepreneurial ears on 100% of the time when you are engaged in our business, because you never know how you're going to fit in to a potential booking, a potential situation, the opportunity to share, to audition, to work on tech. Who knows what you're gonna? You never know what's gonna happen. And so many times, as you pointed out, in my performance history and my life history, it's been about, oh, well, maybe this will work. And I think that's why that's been happening. So over the last decade or so, I've added 35 classes to the curriculum, and now we teach four basic tentpole tenets, and that's the art of voiceover, the commerce of voiceover, the science of voiceover, and most importantly, over the last few years, it's become apparent to me that we really need to talk about the mindset of voiceover and performance in general. So we teach you how to do commercials and narration and audiobooks and animation and video games. That's the art. But then we show you how to build your business. That's the commerce. We show you how to deal with clients, how to deal with auditions and demos and agents. The tech, the microphone and the software and the sites, the casting sites that you have to know. That's the science. And then the mindset, the imposter syndrome and the I'm not good enough, the limiting beliefs that we have for ourselves. It's just I realized after 10 years or so of teaching this that the questions that I was getting were more about mindset than almost anything else. And so I really made a concerted effort in like 2015, 2016 to start to infuse, as though it was jasmine or lavender. I wanted to infuse mindset training into every single one of the classes that we do. And then do a special class called Believe, which really attacked limiting beliefs and replaced them with enabling beliefs. And so that's VO Heroes. And when people study with me, I give them the equipment that I use every day. I give them this microphone, which I think some of the people that are here probably have. This is the AT2020 USB Plus, and I can actually change my microphone real quick to let you hear what it sounds like. So now I'm on this microphone, which is a little bit different than the other microphone. We forgive video, but we don't forgive voiceover work. So let me switch back here real quick. Switch back. There we go. So I give this to the people that study with me, and this is what I use every day. This is my voiceover microphone. This is what I use every day. I give them the software that I use. I give them the earbuds that I use. I give them everything that I use. I eat my own dog food. And that's part and parcel of what I think really makes VO Heroes effective. Um, when you are presented with options of training with people who maybe don't work in the business anymore or have been teaching the same stuff since the 50s, I'll stop talking now. I feel like I've exhausted that.
Well, I'm gonna jump in with a compliment because I quite sincerely have so much deep respect and admiration for you, teacher to teacher, and I just want you to know that because I've known you for a while, and you've always been a caring and forthright and straightforward teacher, but also watching you evolve. It's what I aspire to do, is keep learning myself and tuning into the needs of my students as well. And your program is so holistic and so complete, and looks at a 360 view of what it takes to move forward. And then all we can do is give the information, and then people are going to do with it what they will. But I do absolutely send everybody who asks me about voiceover training directly to you and you only,
Thank
because
you.
you take care of the whole stage picture.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think that one of the things that happened uh, probably about 6 or 7 years ago is I thought, look, this has become a thing for you. And because it has, you really should be as world class about it as you possibly can. So I went to school. I went to school on instructional design. I went to school on knowledge retention. I went to school on flipping the classroom, which we did probably 6 years ago. And I want to make sure that I'm firing on all cylinders as I train people so that they're engaged, so that they are constantly surprised. I'm doing a lot of pattern interruption. People tend to find something that works and then keep pounding at it, which is one approach. But people learn differently, and they learn at different times of the day, and they learn at different times of the week, and they have different schedules. And so I think I appreciate you recognizing that we've worked so hard, and our coaching team has grown, and they're into it, and Trevor, and you likely know Karen Eileen Gordon, and we've got a coach in New York, Victoria Prather, coach in Nashville, Tennessee, J. Rodney Turner, everybody, and Max and Victoria out in the Inland Empire, who work with kids. I mean, we have grown, and we've done so in a way that makes sense. The choice is always, does it work for my clients? And I kind of want to stop talking about me and talk about what they want to talk about, what people who are watching want to talk about. So thank
We're
you.
gonna get their questions.
All
But
right.
I do have one last follow up on this. Do you have a philosophy underneath your teaching?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What is it?
It's my definition of success. And my definition of success is very simple: do more of what works and less of what doesn't. And then you can't help but hone and refine and shape and move toward your eventual goals. Now, the trick is, and this is where I can help, the trick is knowing what works and what doesn't work, because as performers, we get an awful lot of bullshit misinformation. You know, we go to peers who appear to know what they're talking about. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they've heard something. Yeah, I heard you should never use a USB microphone. Don't ever do that. Don't anybody who tells you you can use a USB microphone, yeah, don't listen to them. Well, that microphone is a USB microphone, but it's a very good USB microphone. And the fact of the matter is that the studio mic with the bridge that they tell you to get, so you get a studio mic that's brilliant, and then you get this box that you plug the mic into, and then you plug the box into your computer. That box's electronics are basically miniaturized and put in the bottom of this microphone, and that's what makes it a great microphone, because the electronics are awesome. And I see people in the chat saying the microphone is the best, and it is. It's an exception to the rule. And so that to me is one of those things that works because it's really inexpensive compared to the combination of a really expensive studio mic. I have a $3,000 Neumann U87 sitting on the shelf right up there in its oak box. It's been there for about 12 years. And I look at it fondly, and I think sometime, maybe I'll sell that. I don't know. But then I go, no, it's a reminder. It's a reminder that you can vastly overpay, and that microphone is awesome, and it's all you need. Now, there are people that will totally disagree with me, and that's fine. I know what I know. I don't know what I don't know, but I know what I know. And that mic, I just got finished doing a book for the very first time from home, an audiobook. I do a lot of audiobook work for Penguin Random House, which is the biggest recorder other than Audible of audiobooks in the world. They're the biggest publisher. And I did it from home, and because their studios are closed. And they sent me a note saying, hey, you need to give us a sample of what your home studio sounds like. And then we needed a list of your equipment. So I get that. They want to vet, make sure nobody's using, a gaming headset microphone, a USB microphone that you shouldn't use.
Sure.
So I recorded a sample for them. And in my notes, I put all the equipment in, including AT2020 USB Plus. And I get a call about 10 minutes later from their chief engineer, who I know because I've been to their studios in Woodland Hills a million times to do a million other books. And he goes, "You're an effing liar. That is not a USB microphone. Come on, man. You're yanking my chain, right?" I'm like, no, why would I do that? I don't want to waste your time. And he's like, no way. Okay, I want you to read the screen in front of you and send it to me right now. And I did it while I was on the phone with him. I sent it to him and he goes, son of a bitch. How do you get that sound out of that microphone? And I'm like, because it's a good microphone. And I went through the whole, miniaturization into the bottom of the microphone thing. Like I had to say that to an engineer,
Yeah.
right? But he'd fallen prey to, well, I guess it works. I guess it doesn't work. I don't know. Nobody likes USB microphones. They got to all suck. But some of them are really, really good. And that's one of them. So do more of what works and less of what doesn't. And that is what every single class that I teach really places a premium and an emphasis on.
Well, I love that. And just also as a professional full-time educator, I relate to it a lot, because a lot of people come to us, me, I'll speak for myself, but probably for you too, and they want the exact answer and the definitive answer and the always or the never answer.
Mhm.
And part of our job is saying it doesn't really quite work that way. I understand why you're asking that, and I understand where the genesis of that question and what it's born from, but really the guidance for, I think, from a good teacher lies in your one simple statement, because you can't tell all the people that you teach this will always be this way, whatever the question is, because circumstances change, eras change, technology slightly changes. There are always these little like pebbles thrown into the pond that send these ripples and changes. And also, even if I do give one person a dissertation of what will absolutely work for them, the next person might not be able to pull it off because they've just got a different nature.
Yeah. Yeah. I think when it comes to actually performing, I think you're absolutely right. I think there are some absolutes when it comes to tools, when it comes to business practices, when it comes to decision making about, marketing, or, I mean, I think there are some uh, general things that you can rely on, but I am totally unafraid of saying, well, the answer to that question is it depends.
It depends. I say that all the time. That
And
was really
here's why. Yeah, well, a lot of times that's the answer. And I hear exactly what you're saying. I do believe that there are some things, especially faulty myths about our business, that have to be snuffed out with Terminator like precision and finality. Because I'm sick and tired of people saying things that hold them back. I'm sick and tired of hearing things repeated, like you can never use a USB microphone. I just I think that, but I think that you have to be agile, and any good coach, any good teacher, any good trainer, any good actor, obviously, is going to be agile about how they approach things, and it depends on your production partner. And I look at all of my students as production partners because eventually they're going to be producing things.
Mhm.
And I want them to understand what that relationship is like. And part of the training that we talk about is how to deal with clients and projects, So, okay, I could just go on, but
Yeah, no, no, no. It's good. It's good. When did the Rehearsal Pro app enter the picture?
that was 2010, 2009, end of 2009, beginning of 2010. I was working on Heroes at the time. That was my first big breakthrough show. And I was at my agent's office. And he got a phone call while I was sitting at his office. We were talking about me working on set the next day. And I had dropped off some paperwork to him or something. And the phone rang, and it was NBC asking me to come and audition for Community, the
Hmm.
show Community, the next day. And he's like, well, he's working. He's on set the next day. What about Wednesday? It was a Monday. What about Wednesday? No, that'd be too late. We're making our choices. Listen, if you can get him down here, this was like 3 in the afternoon. You can get him down here by close of business today. We'll put him on tape. He's already approved by NBC, so the network, that's fine. Um, but we need to get stuff done because we're making decisions tomorrow. And my normal process was to go, to get the script from my agent and be in my studio and record the lines and play them ad nauseum until I'd gotten them down cold. Couldn't do that. So I grabbed my phone and I went out into the parking lot and I recorded on voice memo, and all the way down the 101 from Studio City. For those of you that know Los Angeles geography, the 101 is one of the most treacherous freeways in the world. Voice memo does not have a repeat function. If it had a repeat function, it's likely that Rehearsal Pro would never have been created.
Been
But
there.
I'm trying to find the soft touch play button in voice memo to repeat the lines. I sat in this parking lot and I recorded the lines, and then I'm repeating the lines, saying it back. As I'm pulling onto set at Paramount on Melrose, I get a call from my agent. And he goes, "I'm really sorry. They just called and they said they wrote the part out." So, but I was really excited because I thought, clearly I need an app to help me with this. There has to be an app for this. This was in the days when there's an app for that, right? And there was, and it was horrifying. It was horrifying. It had the worst name in the world, Broadway Buddy Hollywood Helper. That was the name of the app. And to get your script onto the app, you had to have a PC, and you had to open up a share on your hard drive. I'm like, who would use this? Who possibly would use this? So I said, I can do better. And so that's when I built Rehearsal. And it's gone from Rehearsal 2 to Rehearsal Pro. And we have some really cool things coming up with Rehearsal. Up until now, it's been a very solitary thing, doing exactly what I just described. But very soon now, you're going to be able to find another Rehearsal Pro user that can prepare your script for you and get it to you in completely secure manner, where it's still encrypted, no problem with, letting it out in the wild. And you'll be able to pay them for that, or them pay you for that. I want to build an opportunity for actors to do what they love to do and get paid for it. And what they love to do is act. And so wouldn't it be cool if, like, not, I hope nobody here is from Paducah, Kentucky, but if some, community theater dude in Paducah, Kentucky that's being paid, $200 a night to do dinner theater gets to get his script prepared by a Hollywood actor or a New York actor or a London actor, right? It's like, that's awesome. Or we all do what we've been doing, which is, hey, yeah, I'll come over, I'll help you out, You can do it for free if you want, but you can also build a little business with it. And that's what I'm trying to do, is help you build a little side hustle as well. So that's all happening. But it came, to answer your question, 2010.
2010, and it was brought to fruition I mean, in the simplest form, help us learn our lines when we're on our own and on the
Yeah,
go.
exactly. Did I not say that? I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh,
So
Emily,
Emily asked, which role in Community did you audition for? You wouldn't have seen it. I'll tell you what it was. It was The Pianist, and I had to play On Broadway by George Benson. It was the pianist who was just so unhappy to be there. And I knew On Broadway, it's just two chords until it transposes, bump, 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 bump. So I had no problem with that. But there were some lines, and I had to learn the lines. But they wrote the part out, so you wouldn't know that role, because they never produced it in the show. But
nobody got it.
it was a guest show. It was a guest shot. So
Did this is just a question that just surfaced. Was stand-up ever part of your journey as a performer?
maybe.
What? I've never asked you that before. What? Now I want to know more. Don't be coy. Come on.
I did stand up. I did stand up in the 80s. I did stand up in the 90s. I dropped it for a long time because I was doing stand up every day on the radio. And then I took one of Leslie Wolf's courses and did stand up at the Laugh Factory. No, not the Laugh Factory. Comedy Store.
Yeah.
Was it the Comedy Store? I don't know. I don't remember what it was. But you can look on YouTube, and you can find my night, the one video of any night I've ever done. And I talk about catching my now ex-wife in bed with my boss, and the noise that she made when she got off of him when I walked in on them. And it kind of sounded like Fritz Feld. Do you know who Fritz Feld is?
I don't. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's what it sounded like. Anyway.
Note to myself, search for that clip the second this Chattable is over. I'm so glad. I had a feeling. I was like, you're just, well, because you know why? Because you're just so good at telling stories, David. You are a great storyteller. Um, so I the marriage of technology
Mm.
and
I was going to say there have been three of them. Which one do you want to talk about?
no, I don't
But
want to know about your ex-wife.
okay, great, great.
I'm not even gonna go there right now. The marriage of technology and creativity in the entertainment business is just, it's undeniable at this point. Self-tape, self-submission, uh,
Absolutely.
working through teleconferencing, that wasn't even new, but definitely the pandemic has accelerated its presence in our lives and the need for it. So I actually, here's the question I have for you, because I think we all know it's happening.
Hmm.
What would you say to people, because you're so technically savvy, what would you say to folks who are intimidated by technology or feel like it's a hindrance to their creative process?
I would say I absolutely understand because, like anything, it's mysterious, it's full of secrets, it's full of danger. You're going to break something.
Feel that way?
Maybe at some point in your past, you've done something, you've hit a button, and now you don't know what's happened to your screen. We all have that experience, and it makes us gun shy. And, some people, they embrace that. They wear, I'm a tech Luddite or I'm an imbecile when it comes to computers, and they have that badge that they wear. And I feel like it's kind of like saying, I live in LA and I don't like driving. Yeah. So, what I would say is, you might be afraid of it, but usually you're afraid of things that you don't know yet, or don't understand, or have bitten you in the butt in the past. And the good news is that if you're just talking about voiceover is pretty easy in terms of setting the tech up once and then not having to touch it again. And setting the tech up is not that hard either. One of the classes in the curriculum is how to set up your gear, right? When it comes to on camera work, I actually my King Lear project once the pandemic hit was creating a course for teachers that showed them how to set up their cameras, their lights, their microphone, so that they could teach effectively from home. It's called Teacher Course Online. And I gave it away for free for about a month and a half to as many teachers as wanted it. And I think we had like 1,300 teachers across the country that grabbed it. And it was about making the text simpler, avoiding being Zoom bombed, setting up your mic, setting up your all the stuff, and then also how to take all that knowledge and maybe go one step further with it. Now you can certainly use this in our case for self tapes and for doing this kind of work, but also recording your own stuff, creating your own content, which is a huge vein that runs through everything that we teach. Because a lot of people got into SAG back in the day by making a web series, right? Because you tapped Hartley yourself in. And creating your own content is even easier when it comes to voice work. And that to me is a huge part of how to take advantage of the technology. And I have, lovely Carol Herman, right?
I don't know.
So you don't know Carol? Oh, she's lovely. She was in Better Call Saul. She was the woman that riding down the stairway on the seated, the elderly woman. She's lovely, and she's working on her 28th book. I believe she's in her 80s. I may be, and if she can do it, you can do it. Whoever you are, whoever I'm pointing at, yeah, you, the one wearing the badge, you can do it. It's not as hard as you might think. We tend to blow these things up when we don't know, and it's not as hard as you think.
Is there, what do you foresee in the next, say, 5 years as far as technology and the intersection of the entertainment industry goes? I mean, are we going to plateau where we are and this is it, or is there anything that we should be looking at or looking toward?
Well, I think the pandemic is going to be changing an awful lot of what people expect what people are willing to do as performers until this all gets solved with either a vaccine or therapeutics or both. It's going to, I was one of the first actors back once they opened up production, the first day back on Bold and the Beautiful, and they did a story on it on Access Hollywood.
Yeah.
And now my mom, she knows I've made it in show business. Oh yeah.
You know,
So, it's changing things in terms of that. And I also think that it's going to have a lasting effect because production companies, production entities now know, especially in the world of voiceover, they now know that they don't have to go rent really expensive studios. There's a whole lot of stuff you can do on your Mac or your PC from home that, by the way, not just voice talent have been doing, but editors. I have a friend who is an editor on America's Next Top Model, and she edited every single episode for the last 3 years from her kitchen table. So the it was kind of an undercurrent, like they were kind of, yeah, we can do that, but what, we have these offices and these facilities, and there's this nice studio. There are some things that you're probably not going to be able to do, like crowd-based ADR, and what I mean by that is like 7 to 20 people in the room at once to do crowd stuff, but they still are able to do that using Clean Feed or Source Connect or other ways of getting high quality audio from somebody's home. So I think what's going to happen is, even when it's okay to go back to using studios, they're still going to be doing a ton of stuff from home. And because it's cheaper and it's easier and you don't have to get dressed up and drive your car somewhere. Now, I'm pretty sure the sun still exists. I don't know. I haven't been outside in a few months. But yeah, so I think it's going to have long lasting effects. And that's great news for voice talent. So much so that when we opened registration for the latest year, this new year of VO Heroes, I did a free course called Mastering Home Based Voiceover. And really, for me, that could have been a course that I created in like the late 90s. But today, it is so pervasive, and it will stay that way even after it doesn't have to.
yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, there's simply no doubt. At the beginning of this year, I was bound to teaching actors who were in Los Angeles and could drive to my studio. I now have students quite literally all over the planet.
I
And for
believe that's what we discussed over coffee.
it was
I'm just saying.
so yeah, it's an interesting time. I think it is a good time to segue into questions. So if you folks have questions, there is the traditional chat, but there's also a question and answer box. So if you want to drop in there. But before we get there, I like to do a little rapid fire Q&A, David. If
Wow.
I if I can create maybe a game show like moment with you,
Sure.
and just
Ladies and gentlemen, Gunnar Rohrbacher.
no one else has cued me in, but of course you would. So it's just 7 questions I ask everybody, and it's just stimulus response. I'm going to wait for that helicopter to go away. Go away, helicopter. What happens? You can't hear it.
I can hear it.
This is super loud here. Okay,
You're
so
far more important to me.
thank you. Stimulus response. I'm just going to go fast. First thing that comes to your head. Here we go. Y'all set?
Yep.
What does comedy mean to you?
Timing.
If you could change one thing about how the industry functions, what would it be?
Wow. Mm. I have I have some controversial. Uh, I think we all need to be aware that decisions are made for many, many reasons, not because you're not the right person. And accepting that is hard for actors. It really is. That's how I would change things. If you're talking about on the production side of things, I would keep everything right the way it is right now. Let's do more work from home.
Because you understand it. Do you think of yourself as successful?
I do.
What's a funny word?
Uh, Porcupine? Peas, C's. I could do the typical pickle, but porcupine's pretty funny.
What's more important, self-expression or true respect from your peer group?
Uh, I I think there's a third one, and that is serving the audience. So if I could, can I go outside the range on that?
Yeah, it's you're chattable, so you can literally handle this however you want. It's not graded. Is there anyone not invited to your funeral?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Bridget Mahan. Bridget Mahan. She no. Bridget Mahan and Noelle, both of them, not invited to my. Not, here's what happened. Noelle, I was so in love with her. Eighth grade, I wrote this really heartfelt note and I stuck it in her locker. And during fourth period algebra, she shows up in front of my desk with her girlfriends on either side of her. She takes my note out, she rips it up into little tiny pieces and drops it on my desk. And in the eighth grade, says to me, "My men don't pass notes." And then turned around and walked away.
What do they pass? Stones, you little trollop?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your support.
Yeah, I'm livid hearing that. All right, but thanks for spilling the tea and naming names. Some people don't want to say. Last question. Is there anything every human being on the planet has a responsibility to do?
A responsibility to do.
Your opinion, yeah.
We all could do a lot better if we grabbed onto the responsibility of being generous in our interpretations. We have become a world filled with people who jump to conclusions and decide to cancel and make decisions that are black and white without considering more of the framework of what we're doing. You know, people are very quick to hate, very quick to judge, very quick to use the internet and its anonymity to declare their hate and their judgment. And there may be some absolute devils in the world, but I think that sometimes we forget that human beings have reasons for doing what they do, and more importantly, whatever menu they have inside them, they can't help but choose the number one item. So the number one item is always what they go with, no matter what. And usually the people that we disagree with have a different menu and can't figure out how to change that menu for the better. When you give people better choices and they become really important, those number one choices are automatic. And I'm getting a little emotional about this because I think we are so quick. You know, we live in a world where we can't exist and disagree with each other. And I get that there are some things that we shouldn't disagree on. But I also get that we've lost a bit of humanity when it comes to understanding the map that we're on and that the people that we disagree with are on. And getting on their map for a moment, you know, walking a mile in their shoes, we don't do that anymore. We just say F you, you know, and I think we have the responsibility to be as human as we used to be.
From your mouth, David H. Lawrence, the 17th. What a fantastic answer. Layered and thoughtful. And I feel calmer having listened to it.
Great.
It was grounding. I mean that. Okay. Thank you for that. You're off the hook. Can you just can you tell the kids what the 17th is for just before we go to their questions?
Yeah, I mean, I've written if anybody sends me an email and asks me, I'll send you the story that I wrote for all the fans. But the truth of the matter was, I got into SAG by doing a Sony commercial, and I had to choose my SAG name. This was before SAG and After were merged. And I was on the phone with the woman at SAG trying to come up with some version of my name that hadn't been taken already. And I'm looking at my IMDb profile, and after my name it says in parentheses, in Roman numerals, XVII, because I was the 17th David Lawrence on IMDb. That's how common my name was. And I thought, oh, that'd be funny if I was David H. Lawrence the 17th. And she goes, perfect. Click.
Click.
You know, it's worked out. I'm pretty much assured of single card if it's available in the credits. Could have been a bad decision. I'm sure some people say to themselves quietly, the fuck is his problem? The story that I tell goes back to the mid 1550s and David H. Lawrence the First and how he actually created fast food in Scotland. Wasn't all that good because it was haggis, but you know, and it goes on from there. So
Right. If it was totally real, that would be quite a lineage. Um, you may find this surprising, but as Gunnar Rohrbacher, I didn't encounter the same problem.
really,
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I have no such story to tell. I didn't have to weed past the other ones.
no, you didn't. And that's what I tell people. That's what I tell students when they go, "How do I choose a stage name?" It's like, well, first of all, you do a Google search for it, and if it doesn't come up, keep it on the list. Do a domain name search for it. Do a Gmail search for it. You know, if you can find a name that you can, you know, today's requirements are so important. You know, yeah, don't fight that. Anyway, go ahead.
Anyway, well, if I could make a callback, I mean, ever since you said it, now I've been thinking of changing my stage name to Broadway Buddy Hollywood Helper. I kind of would just like to be called that from
You
now
know,
on.
my advice to you there is it depends.
I need an always or a never.
Sorry.
Sorry, it's not available. Hi,
Very
Dave.
few absolutes.
What is there aren't? Life is nuanced. It's actually fun, more fun to explore than people think, I think. What is your camera setup? Your stream looks so clear and sharp.
Yeah, so one of the things that I did all last year is I did a new video every single day. It helped me build content and it helped me refine my look. And I usually am not in the middle of the screen, but I am for Zoom. I'll just move my chair over so that I'm actually using the rule of three. So I went from using a really, you know, like Apple's idea of it's changing. I think they're hearing my bitching. But of all the technology in your Macintosh these days, the least quality technology is the FaceTime camera. They're still using 480 by 260 or some bullshit. And they're changing that. The new MacBook Pro and the new iMac have much better cameras. But what I did was I went from the built-in camera to a webcam for about 6 months as I was doing every one of these videos every day, 5 to 8 minutes on something that would help my clients do a better job at acting, voiceover, productivity, organization, something that would be helpful to them. Mindset, a lot of mindset stuff. And every day I would hone and refine what I was doing. Towards the end of the year, I decided to bite the bullet and jump from a webcam to a prime lens on a DSLR, and I had permanent lighting installed. And you know, the key to this is a cinematic look. I'm in focus on this plane, but my background is out of focus. And if I put my hand up to the lens, you see that that's out of focus. And that's because I'm using a prime lens rather than a lens that follows you in terms of focus. And the camera that I'm using is a Panasonic Lumix G7, which you know is a DSLR camera that has video out, HDMI, and that's really the current state of, for me, best practices. And it's also what I based all of Teacher Course Online and where I was showing teachers, here's what you can use, and if you want to do this, this is what you need to do. But I helped them also make their webcam better and their built-in FaceTime camera better. And just a simple notion of, you know, taking one of these lens wipes and you know, going in and wiping your lens off makes all the difference in the world. And we don't think about those things because we're not cinematographers usually. But that's my setup is LED lights at 5400K. I've got brick behind me, so that was convenient. The Lumix G7, I've got a shotgun microphone that's just off camera. I'll raise it up into camera so you can see it. Okay. And then that's plugged into the camera, and both are married and come out into HDMI, into my Mac Mini, and there you go.
And so, yeah, oh, well, that was very thorough. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Um, what are your thoughts on, will talent agents in LA consider talent outside of LA because of the remote capabilities we have?
Depends on what talent you're talking about. If it's on camera, not likely. But if it's voiceover, absolutely. And in fact, the good news is voiceover, whereas on camera, you're really only supposed to have one agent. You know, my agent said, if you want an agent in London, go for it. For on camera, for theatrical and commercial, same thing. But for voiceover, it is not only accepted, but pretty common that you'll have an agent in multiple markets. I have 7 voiceover agents across the country, and you have to just know who your home agent is, because you might get the same script from multiple agents, and you got to make sure they all understand. My LA agent is my main agent. And it depends on where you are. If you're in Miami, maybe your Atlanta agent is your main agent, or your, whatever. But the point is, I think that's been long since the standard in voiceover, if that's what you're talking about. But if you're not, if you're talking about on camera, highly unlikely. I don't know. I don't think so, though. On the other hand, I just had an Atlanta agent ask me if I wanted to be represented. So I don't know. I mean, if I was a betting man, I would say that they want you to be available at the last minute to drive down to Paramount looking for the play button on voice memo on the 101. But I don't know.
Some of our friends want to take advantage of your technical know-how if it's possible. Can you please
Sure.
let me know if you ever heard of earphones that are comfortable for people with small ear holes?
Sure. Don't throw away those little rubber things that come inside the package, because there are 3 sets. It's not so you can replace ones of the same size, but there are small, medium, and large. In the ones that we send out to our clients, which are Panasonic, they're like $12. They come with small, medium, and large little rubber pieces that fit on the little stalk that the sound comes out of. And those are very technical terms, the little stalk that sound comes out of, just so you know. So don't throw those away. Figure out which ones fit best, because some people's ears are bigger, some people's ears are smaller. What you do want is you want to make sure that you push them all the way in, not just let them sit on the outside. You'll actually find that they're more comfortable if they're solidly placed inside, and you do that by pulling down your earlobe and pushing it in even more. Not so far in that you have to have an otorhinolaryngologist remove them, but
Wow.
but so that they are sealed, so that you don't have to keep pushing them in, right? So just know that there's, and maybe there probably Amazon sells an even smaller set that you can pop onto the little stalk where the sound comes out.
Good question, Katie. I mean, I hear Katie because you know what? Also have small ear holes. It's an issue, and I know about replacing the different sizes. Sometimes even the small ones too big for my tiny ears.
And by the way, use the ones with soft rubber. The ones that I recommend, very soft silicone rubber that will compress just enough to seal out room noise, and you must wear headphones. Anybody who teaches you not to wear headphones because you'll get in your head, tell them no thank you, I want to wear headphones, because it speeds up your work without impinging on the quality. You can hear when you pop a P, and you can do a pickup right away. And you can hear when the helicopter flies overhead, right? If you're not wearing earbuds, you might not notice it. And so I insist that my clients wear earbuds. I would be lost without them.
All right, that was very thorough. Good to know. What model, if you don't mind, is your USB mic? And in case it's too pricey, do you have a good recommend for starters?
So I don't know what too pricey is for you, but the Audio Technica AT2020 is, and it's the AT2020 USB Plus. There's 3 AT2020s in the 2020 line. One is a studio microphone that you would plug an actual XLR cable into a mixer or into a bridge. Then there's the AT2020 USB, which I don't think they sell anymore, but I think they still list it in their catalog. And then there's the AT2020 USB Plus, which is USB microphone with a USB cable out, a data cable out that you plug right into your computer, and a headphone jack for the earbuds that we insist you use, and a little mixer on the mic itself. And usually you can get it on Amazon for about 150 bucks. So anything less than that, I really wouldn't. I would be hard pressed to think of any other microphone that I would recommend that is less expensive than that and has the same quality. There are microphones that are more expensive than that. I certainly wouldn't get a Blue Yeti. I wouldn't get a Snowball. I wouldn't get any one that in its marketing material says great for playing Call of Duty. So yeah, the AT20, not the 2500. Mary, sell that to some unsuspecting rube on eBay or Craigslist. The ATR 2500 costs 70 bucks or so for a reason. They went for the podcast market and they cheaped out on the electronics inside. And you're getting latency because you're plugging into the computer rather than into the microphone, because you can't plug into the microphone. So that's why you want to use the right mic. And the right mic, the lowest level right mic, the one that I use, is the 2020 USB Plus, not the 2500. The 2500 is a bit of a toy. And I'm just being honest, I'm not trying to find out that you're wrong or make you wrong or blame you. I'm just saying whoever gave you that advice or whatever decision you made to get there, it wasn't your best day, but we can fix that because there's going to be somebody on eBay that'll buy it from you.
Very good. Super sage advice, but also the child in me thinks Snowball and Blue Yeti would be good euphemisms for the sex. I'm just saying. All right. So it's globally, it's like, you can just, okay. It's globally appreciated that writers who have been actors are often better equipped to understand and appreciate the actor and do the actor's job. Do you feel it's good for actors to become writers as well, practice writing so they can understand and appreciate the writer's process?
Absolutely. And I don't think there's anybody in town that can help you with that more than Gunnar. Oh. So the writing is, it's like any part of our business becomes easier when you understand the goals and the best practices of your production partner. One of the extracurricular courses, we have this core set of courses in VO Heroes, and then we have a bunch of extracurricular courses. And one of the extracurricular courses, I was paid by the city of Miami, Dade County, city of Miami-Dade County, I don't recall. I cashed the check. They asked me to write a course on creating world-class commercial copy. So writing really good commercials. And I make it available to my students because if you understand how commercials are constructed, and you understand things like calls to action, and mental triggers, and the unique selling proposition that DDO or BBO came up with many years ago. If you understand how what you're going to be voicing is constructed and why it's done the way it's done, that is so much more informative to you than the notion of I have to get every word right. It changes your goal when how you're coming to it is how do I serve the problem? How do I help solve the problem that the listener or the viewer is trying to solve with my client's product or service? And so understanding how writing occurs in sitcoms, how it occurs in procedurals, how it occurs across an arc of 10 or 12 episodes of a season, of a miniseries, who knows? Once you get that, oh my gosh, your preparation is so much different. It was lucky for me. I went from what was supposed to be one episode on Heroes to 3 seasons. And once that happened, once they decided, okay, we're going to write you into the next 8 episodes and then on into the next seasons, they started to share with me where the arc was going. And I could have said, well, I don't care. Just send me the script. I don't care. What do I care? But I did care. I wanted to know where things were going, not so I could telegraph where things were going, but so that I could play along, so that I could be with them. I could give them the service that they deserve, the writers and the producers of the show. because I knew that would serve the audience more. So, absolutely, if you are of a notion to do it, not just writing, but editing, cinematography, sound, to understand how all of these crafts work together to create Emmy and Grammy and Oscar award winning productions, you're that much further ahead of all the people that you see in the audition waiting room and going in to do the work, right? It's like all the clues that you tell people, and I use when I get a script, I go and download all the other scripts from that project as well. I want to know what's going on. Why is my character acting this way? What does he want? And knowing those clues when it comes to other, I'm getting really hyped up here. I got to calm down.
No, I dig the passion.
Knowing those clues really helps you. There you go. I landed the plane. I sure did.
There you go. On side note, because it's chattable, so we can chat. I can chat. I
Can
also
I?
do.
Can
Oh,
I just want to say to Daniela, the Rode is awesome. It's more expensive than the AT2020, but the Rode NT1 or the Rode NT1 USB, perfect. Don't worry about it. Go ahead.
I created a course. This is just a completely a side note. But I created a course called Acting for Animators that I taught to animators at Walt Disney Animation Studios. And it
Hmm.
was one of the most fascinating things that I ever did because the edict was they're not going to want to act Gunnar. So they wanted to bridge the gap between voice actors who were isolated in a booth and animators who are isolated on their animation desks. And so they said, we want you to teach them a course that went all through summer. I did it 3 years in a row. To teach them acting, but they don't want to get up and they probably won't talk.
And did you find that that was true?
I did. So I had to invent a different way of teaching acting than I ever would have thought of or tried before because they were resistant. But I also went in with the goal to get them up and working on scripts, but I couldn't start with that. So I employed a variety of different strategies and tactics to teach them acting without them doing it.
Yeah.
Uh, and it taught me a lot of different ways to teach. Anyway,
Yeah.
so I just thought you'd appreciate that.
Yeah. That's great.
Are there any exercises you recommend for an aspiring VO actor? Or what's a good practice, warm up, anything?
Practice. I'll tell you, there are a lot of people out there that have very, 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 very complicated warm up procedures. And I would just point out to you that doing voiceover is a lot less strenuous than singing. Singing is shouting to a melody. Your sound pressure levels are quadruple, quintuple, 10 times the volume that you're usually generating when you're doing audio, when you're doing voice work. And so my warm up exercise every day is as follows. We ready? Okay. But that's just me. There are people who insist on standing when they do voice work. I think it's a little silly. Uh, Nobody who does audiobooks, which is probably the longest form of voiceover work, hours and hours a day, not hours and hours at a time, but hours and hours a day. I would go to the studios or even doing work here, and I'd start at 10 in the morning and I'd probably end up around 5 in the afternoon. But there were lots and lots of breaks. But let's just say audiobooks. Nobody stands. All the studios at Penguin Random House out in Woodland Hills, they all have very comfortable chairs to sit in that are one piece. None of these, Aeron chairs with 90 moving parts that will rattle eventually. And my chair is a solid piece of aluminum. It's an aluminum dining chair that has a very thick tufted pillow on it. And we sit and we come up with Audie award winning content without having to stand because that's what we've seen in the B-roll on Disney. Now, there are going to be times when you will stand, maybe in the studio if I'm doing work for Disney and I'm working on a show like Hulk and the Agents of Smash. I play Mole Man, one of the villains. They will have all of the microphones in a U-shaped configuration for like, 8 to 10 to 12 people all at the same time, and we all have bar stool height stools to sit on when we're not talking. And when we are talking, yeah, we get up in front of the microphone, but it's mostly so we can use our bodies. And with audiobook work, you don't want to do that. You don't want to make any noise whatsoever. And with most work, you don't want to do that. The exceptions are video games and animation. But almost everything else, you need to just be using your voice. Now, that doesn't mean that you wouldn't use your body in some way if I was going to be doing a scene or a commercial where I was running. Then I would bounce up and down like this to get my organs moving and make my voice change so that it sounded like I was running. But that's about as far as I would go. And so, yeah. Did I over explain that? Did I level that? Okay.
No, that's what you're just thorough. I'm like that too. But I do have a follow-up.
Yeah.
Because at a standing pace, you speak well. And even though I'm an on-camera teacher, it's obviously, like you said, a lot of times, even if your character is on camera, I say this all the time in class, a lot of times, unless you're in the genre of action, adventure, or fantasy, your character is just standing there or sitting there. So I talk about sound quality and speaking well all the time. I feel like foundational voice training for on-camera actors and especially comic actors is fallen out of grace as much as it should.
Yeah.
So my follow-up is just at a standing pace. Um, how do you get your voice placement? How do you make it that easy for everybody? Did that make sense? Like
Uh,
you speak well all the time, even when you're just chatting. I
mhm.
try to have diaphragm engagement. Um, so
Well, I think a couple things are working against actors, and that is environmental, societal, uh, uh, sort of themes like uptalking and vocal fry, and your peers don't want you to talk well. You think, right? Your
yeah,
peers want you to be like cool and ending your sentences like this, all the time, and being down here and being like, like cool, like let's go out. Yeah, sure, absolutely. But how you conduct yourself with your peers doesn't necessarily mean you have to conduct yourself 100% that way all the time. And here's the dirty little secret: your peers won't think you're high and mighty if you simply up your game when it comes to speaking. And when you do that, your on camera acting benefits greatly. Understanding how a lavalier mic tucked into your tie or tucked into your collar or just under your dress with a little muff on it, or a boom mic over you, understanding the spatial relationships of those things. You know, I really was proud of the work that I've done on television in terms of my voice work. Because when we think about the actors that really affect us the most, think about Meryl Streep. Her voice work is about half of what makes her so brilliant. Of course, falling into a character and being enveloped by it, making you invisible to the world, is also part of her skill. But when you think about Sophie's Choice, and you think about how she's so underplayed, that Polish accent, Dzień dobry, jak się masz, and you could feel the the pathos in what she did. It's why the awards started coming. And yes, it was because she knew where to place herself on camera. And that too, I mean, if you've not read Secrets of Screen Acting, please do so. Or if you want to make me happy, buy the audiobook and listen to me narrate it. Um, Understanding how the technology works will slide right into making you a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant executioner of our craft.
Fantastic. All right. I just had to get a little foundational, some thoughts on foundational voice work from you. All right. We're almost at a close. I can sneak this one in. It's really as simple and straightforward. I bought a 2035 XLR and a Focusrite Solo. Was this a good purchase?
Perfect. You spent about $500 on that, maybe? I don't know. It depends on what you paid for it. Maybe a little less, maybe a little more. I don't know. The AT2020 will give you pretty much the exact same sound for about 150 bucks. But you have a studio microphone now that you can also use for singing. I wouldn't say to use the 2020 for singing, but you can use the 2035 for sure. The Audio-Technica line is just an amazing line of microphones, and they underprice all of their microphones based on their quality. Yeah, I think that the combination of those two, Focusrite does amazing work. When I was using my Neumann, I used a Focusrite Green Box, which was the much more expensive great 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 grandfather of the Scarlett or the whatever you're using. I'm not sure what box in the line of Focusrites you're using, but it's a great combination what you have. Yeah.
Good. So good for singing, or also, as you mentioned, screaming a melody. I think
Yeah, just,
my
understand what the sound pressure level's like. You might have noticed that my pop filter is actually a mic sock, right?
uh
And it's because when you do voice work, and let me just switch to this real quick. So sometimes you want to play this microphone about 3 fingers away from it when you're doing normal work, when you're just doing typical work like this. But if you have a big foam ball, or if you have a ring with nylon stretched across it, you're pushed back away from the microphone. And most microphones like this play better the closer you are. And when you're doing intimate work, when you're right up on top of the microphone,
Sounds good.
you need to be able to get as close as possible. And if you have that ring in the way or a big foam ball, you can't get that close. So, whoops, hold on. Okay, there we go.
All right. That was extraordinarily helpful and entertaining. It is about time for us to wrap. So where can people find you? voheroes.com?
VOHeroes.com. Please avail yourself of the terabytes of free stuff there, the videos, the free articles, the support stuff that I did over the last 10 years. And if you want to study with me, you can become a VO Heroes Pro. I'd love to have you. Anybody that's in Gunnar's family is in my family. You come approved. And I love working with actors who are also doing on camera and on stage, because I can talk to them in a language that I can't usually talk to a salesperson or a customer service rep or a lawyer, you know? The ladies.
The ladies. And then on social media, we can find you at David H. Lawrence the 17th.
On almost every channel, I can't find one that I haven't been this, but on every channel, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Tumblr, ones that don't exist anymore, Google Plus, it's DH Lawrence XVII. But if you just look for XVII, it's likely that you'll find me.
Okay, fantastic. So I'm not going to let you go yet, but I'm just going to let everybody know while we still have them here. If you like the Chattables, I have a few more scheduled through October. Next Friday at 3 is the fabulous and talented comedy goddess and muse Beth Lapidus, host of Uncabaret. Beth is fabulous, and I can't wait for that conversation. This has been a great conversation. So David, one of the things I also do on Chattable is I thought through the format, and I thought I would just like to give something. And since we're virtual, I can't hand you anything. So what I give my guests is, I'll put it there. I have this box of Louise Hay
Oh
Power,
my gosh.
right, which I
Thank
love,
you.
and I just like to have inspiration handy around the house. So in my mind, no one else has to believe it but me. The universe wants you to have the card that you choose. So I'm just going to flick through, and at a certain point, just say stop.
Stop.
So this is the card, and I'm going to read it to you. I am beautiful, and everybody loves me. I radiate acceptance, and I am deeply loved by others. Love surrounds me and protects me. So that's what you were supposed to have today. And I think the comments in the chat prove it, because our guests adored you. I adored you. I am grateful that you accepted to be a guest on our Chattable. And I hope it's not long before I talk to you again, friend.
It's not my place. It's just so lovely to see everybody. I see some familiar faces, a lot of first names. So I don't know if it's the Katie I know, but or the M that I know. But thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate it.
Absolutely. So you take care. All of our guests take care, and we will see you soon on Chattable. Bye, everybody.